white BMW struck the TTC with such force that while it was initially traveling southbound, as you see behind me, the vehicle, the TTC vehicle, was spun around and faced northbound.
9 people injured, including 2 who are fighting for their lives in hospital after a stolen vehicle collided with a TTC bus in North York early this morning. Good afternoon. The crash happened just before 2 a.m. in the area of Bathurst and Wilson.
Police say 2 vehicles were speeding through the area when one of them collided with the bus, which had passengers on board. CTV's Janice Golding has been following the investigation and joins us live with the latest. Janice.
Hi, Natalie. As you can imagine, this is a very busy intersection, and people have been stopping by all morning to stare and to express their shock and disbelief about what happened here. Now, if you take a look behind us right now, you can see that the cleanup is underway. About 10 minutes ago, they did manage to remove the TTC bus and the white SUV. I understand we have some video now. What we can tell you is that the front end of a white BMW was completely crushed, doors strewn across the sidewalk. A badly damaged TTC bus was partially blocking Wilson. That was the aftermath of an overnight collision in North York. Police say just before 2 a.m., 2 vehicles, a white BMW and a black SUV, were traveling at a very high rate of speed westbound on Wilson Avenue. As they approached Bathurst Street, the black SUV made it through the intersection, but the white sedan struck the driver's side of a southbound TTC bus. 4 people were in the BMW, including 2 that sustained life-threatening injuries. 5 people were aboard the bus, including the driver, and were taken to hospital with minor injuries, including a woman who was ejected from the bus.
The white BMW struck the TTC with such force that while it was initially traveling southbound, as you see behind me, the vehicle, the TTC vehicle, was spun around and faced northbound. As you can imagine, there were a number of very serious injuries. Police immediately responded to this collision, and uniform officers actually found the white BMW on fire. They quickly put out the fire and extricated at least, 1 person.
I just heard a really loud sound. It was like a bomb. I was scared. Lots of steam, lots of smoke, and I could hear some passengers of the bus was moaning. It was, I think, from pain or something.
Now, here is something important to note. The Toronto Police Association is once again calling on the federal government to institute meaningful bail reform, indicating that 2 of the 4 people inside the stolen white BMW were out on bail. Reporting live, I'm Janice Golding. Now back to Natalie.
Okay, thank you, Janice. A man is fighting for his life in hospital after a transport truck rolled over in Etobicoke last night. Police were called to the area of Milvan Drive and Finch Avenue shortly before 10 p.m. Officers say a man in his 30s was trapped in the truck and had to be rescued. The man was rushed to hospital with life-threatening injuries. No other vehicles were involved in the crash. The cause is still under investigation.
A woman is dead and her husband has been charged with second-degree murder following an incident at a home in Oshaw.
Anytime there's any sort of incident like this, I think it affects the community a great deal. We do have resources available for those involved, as well as for those that this may impact. If anyone does need those, then we are asking to reach out and we can provide assistance where needed.
Police were called to the home on Eulalie Avenue near Ritson Road and King Street around 12:30 yesterday morning. They found a 48-year-old woman with severe injuries. She was rushed to hospital where she later died. Her 41-year-old husband was taken into custody and charged with murder. Police say the couple's 2 children were home at the time, along with an elderly woman. All 3 were not hurt.
He used to, not giving any names, but he used to come over and talk to us on the porch, and just the friendly. Seemed like
by he, you mean the man who was taken away?
The man that was arrested. Yeah, well, he, like I said, we've been here for 18 years, and he was always friendly to us and come by and just talk. So, unfortunately, again, I don't know what happened. It's just a tragic situation.
I never heard anything, or it was this morning that they started talking. I said, what's going on? Like, why all the police cars? Apparently some man killed his wife. I said, killed his wife? Are you kidding? They said, no, we wouldn't be here if we were kidding, And I thought, oh my, that's horrible. That's absolutely horrible.
Police have now identified the victim as Parween Adel and the suspect as Hakeem Adel. He is currently being held for a bail hearing.
Police in Peel Region are searching for a suspect in connection with multiple sexual assaults this month.
In all 3 incidents, unsuspecting female victims were waiting at bus stops in the city of Brampton and were approached by a male suspect driving a dark-colored 4-door sedan. The suspect offered the women a ride to their destination, and all 3 accepted the offer. The women were driven away, where they were sexually assaulted by the suspect.
The suspect is described as a man between 20 and 25 years old. He has short black hair and a full black beard and a medium to muscular build. Police are asking anyone with information to come forward.
Still to come on CTV News at noon, the Prime Minister says his government could have taken action sooner to crack down on immigration. We'll have more on his comments a little later in the newscast.
But first, the province says the refurbishment of Unit 1 at the Darlington Nuclear Generating Station is complete 5 months ahead of schedule.
This is just another example of how nuclear energy is a win for our economy, a win for our environment, and a win for Ontario's ratepayers. As we continue to lead the largest refurbishment and expansion of nuclear energy on the continent.
Officials say returning Unit 1 to service provides 875 megawatts of power to Ontario's grid. That is enough to power 875,000 homes for the next 30 years. Unit 4 at the plant is set to be refurbished by 2026.
Toronto's new medical officer of health is set to be named today. Dr. Eileen De Villa, who's currently serving in the role, announced she would be stepping down in May. She is set to conclude her duties on December 31st. De Villa, who has served in the role since 2017, is best known for leading Toronto through the COVID-19 pandemic. Toronto Public Health says a comprehensive transition plan will be in place for her successor.
There are several TTC route and schedule changes to be aware of heading into the work week. Due to construction, the 511 Bathurst streetcar will now travel from Bathurst Station to Union Station rather than Exhibition Loop. A bus route will serve the stops between Queen Street and Exhibition. The TTC is also adjusting service on several other streetcar and bus routes. A full list of changes is available on the TTC's website. A new report finds more girls are participating in sports across the country, but still fewer than the number of boys.
Nearly 4 in 10 girls are not playing sports, with that number dropping to half by the age of 16. Our Beth McDonnell has more on the findings of this latest report called Rally Report. Beth, tell us more.
Michelle, the report found that more girls are playing organized sports, so 63% of them doing so weekly compared to 68% of boys playing weekly. But the report also found that 1 million girls across Canada are missing out on the benefits of sports. Canadian Women in Sport is a non-profit organization that advocates for women and girls in sports. Today they released their Rally Report and held a panel discussion. This year's theme is All Girls Can Play. The study heard from 5,000 respondents, 2,000 of them girls and women across the country, to learn how to better support them in sport. One young woman here talked about the guidance and mentorship she didn't realize she needed from female coaches until later on. Others, the link between sports and confidence and leadership skills. On the positive side, the report found more girls are staying in sports through adolescence, but 4 in 10 girls aren't playing sports at all.
We start to see a drop-off start actually before the age of 10, and then it just accelerates through the teen years. And so what it really calls for is within the sports system and all the sport leaders and organizations that are involved in making sport come to life in this country, for them to really become more educated in what it looks like to create spaces that really work for girls, that foster a sense of belonging throughout the whole pathway, but particularly in those teen years when there's so many things pushing and pulling on girls. If we can keep them in sport, then it will make a difference for their whole lives.
One of the key findings from the report that emerged from girls' responses was how much playing sports helps mental health. Reporting live, I'm Beth McDonnell. Michelle and Natalie, back to you.
Thank you, Beth. Well, big news out of the world of sports. The Argonauts are newly crowned Grey Cup champions.
The Boatmen beat the Winnipeg Blue Bombers last night to secure their place as CFL champions.
For the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Pressure coming. Caleros quickly get rid of it. It's picked off. Intercepted. Robert Priester, and he's taking it back all the way.
The team pulled away in the fourth quarter, scoring 24 points in the frame. They ended up beating the Bombers 41-24 to secure their 19th Grey Cup win. CTV's Raheem Ladani has been gathering reaction to the big win and joins us live with more. Raheem.
Natalie, good afternoon. We're here in Maple Leaf Square, but I'm going to be renaming this place Argo's Alley for the next 2 days. You can see behind me the Argonauts banners have already been hung, and the stage is being set up because there is going to be a massive championship rally here tomorrow. You mentioned that the Argos now have 19 Grey Cups in franchise history, but how about these numbers? They now have 5 more championships than anyone else in the CFL. They've won 2 out of the last 3 Grey Cups, and they have now won 8 consecutive Grey Cups that they've played in. And last night, they added to their collection in incredible fashion. This was a 1-point game in the fourth quarter, and that's when the Boatmen, they really turned it on. Quarterback Nick Arbuckle, who was close to calling it a career before this season, started in place of Chad Kelly, who was injured last game. He threw for 2 touchdowns and was named the most valuable player. Then there's wide receiver Dijon Brissett, who caught one of those TD passes, and he was crowned the most outstanding Canadian. We were at a Grey Cup watch party in Etobicoke last night, and the fans, they were pumped. Check out some of the reaction from last night and this morning.
What a great night, friends and family, Argos fans. Can't get any better. Grey Cup 2024. Yeah!
It's a great display of our team. We've been faithful since day one. They have been doing a great job all year.
It always surprises you how much of the hardcore CFL fans there are in Toronto. They're just waves spread out more.
Do you think this team gets enough love in this city?
The Argos? Not enough. Absolutely not enough. But they deserve for everything they've earned. Absolutely.
So fans are hoping that the love will be shown here tomorrow at Maple Leaf Square, aka Argo's Alley. The parade gets underway tomorrow at 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. The players are going to be here. There's going to be live music, giveaways as well. Of course, the Grey Cup will also be here. And so fans are told to come down here and support the Boatmen. Reporting live, I'm Raheem Ladani. Michelle, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Raheem. Yes, and the sun is shining as Torontonians revel in the Grey Cup win. Very comfortable temperatures to spend time outside today, and another pretty good November day on tap for the big party in Argo's Alley tomorrow, which is saying something this time of year. Let's bring in Jessica Smith, who's out and about this afternoon. We do have quite a bit of a stretch of rain coming our way this week, but a few good days to kick off the week, Jess.
Right? The sunshine is holding on, Michelle, as we step into a brand new work and school week, thanks to high pressure holding firmly. So perfect timing to kick off the Tim Hortons Smile Cookie campaign, which starts today. We'll have more on that later. We're at the Tim Hortons right now at Midland and Ellesmere, and I have my eyes on 1, 2, maybe 3 Smile cookies. But your forecast for today is going to be fantastic. Another unusually warm fall day as we step in towards the middle of the month. And we're looking at high pressure holding firmly as we head right throughout the day today. Now, there is some active weather on the way as a massive low pressure system makes its way in. But we're going to start off, at least today and tomorrow, relatively dry. Right now, kind of in the low double digits as we get our week started. And we're holding on to a fairly moderate wind. As we head throughout the afternoon throughout Pearson over towards the island, it's really not all that bad. We'll see a daytime high sitting above seasonal today and that moderate westerly wind at about 20 kilometers an hour. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long range forecast, including we'll keep an eye on that rain because it is going to be a little soggy as we head into the second half of the week. But for now, I'll send things back inside to you.
Thank you, Jess. MPPs are back at Queen's Park following a constituency week, and there are a number of items on the agenda.
CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris has more on what tops the list for debate in the legislature.
It's a startling statistic from CAMH. 1/4 of all Ontario students report being bullied at school.
This is simply unacceptable, and we must do everything in our power to change it.
So at the start of Bullying Awareness and Prevention Week, a pledge from the Education Minister.
I'm pleased to announce that we are investing $4.6 million to support these efforts and expand initiatives that equip students with the social and emotional skills they need to thrive.
At least 3 school boards have landed in hot water recently for spending on work-related trips by senior staff. Jill Dunlop says she had a frank discussion with all directors of education Friday about discretionary spending.
We really talked about using common sense. This is taxpayers' money that, we invest a lot of money in education, and that is meant to go into the classroom to support our teachers and to support our students.
As MPPs slid back behind their desks at Queen's Park after a week away, the NDP leader promises a new financial deal for municipalities if her party manages to unseat the Ford government. Marit Stiles says cities big and small feel broken.
It looks like waiting for a bus that won't come because routes have been cut back. It looks like roads and bridges falling apart before your very eyes. And it looks like more of our neighbors forced to couch surf or sleep outside because there's not enough housing.
Stiles says while the Premier may boast about not having raised taxes.
Yeah, well, there's a Doug Ford levy on every single resident in this province, right? That's paying increased municipal taxes.
And she says now is the time for the province to take back some responsibility.
This afternoon, the government will introduce legislation that will make formal the plan to close most of the province's supervised drug consumption sites and remove the right of registered sex offenders to change their names. At Queen's Park, Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
A special mediator has joined Canada Post in striking workers at the bargaining table. Ottawa appointed mediator Peter Simpson to assist with the negotiations. Today marks day 4 of the postal workers' strike, and there has been no progress in the talks. There is growing concern about how the work stoppage could impact the holiday shopping season. However, the federal government says it currently has no plans to force workers back to the job.
When they were on strike in 2018, it continued on for 5 weeks before the government intervened and ordered them back to work, and actually in late November of 2018. Here we have a strike that started right around the same time, and the parties really are so far apart.
More than 55,000 postal workers have been on strike since Friday, halting all mail and parcel deliveries. The union representing workers says it wants improvements to wages, benefits, and work conditions. Negotiations between the union and Canada Post have been ongoing for a year.
Thousands of CN rail workers across the country will be holding strike votes today. The union, representing roughly 3,500 railway workers, says it's calling on CN to address issues including job security, compensation, and working conditions. The union says the strike votes will help outline where its members stand on the terms of the ongoing negotiations.
In Ottawa, Parliament is closing in on an 8th week of gridlock over a Conservative privilege motion. Business in the House of Commons, including the government's potential response to the Canada Post strike, has been put on hold. It is the result of a Conservative motion calling on the Trudeau Liberals to hand over unredacted documents related to a green technology fund. They claim the government mismanaged millions of dollars of taxpayers' money. If the deadlock continues, parliamentary rules dictate that it could amount to a lack of confidence in the government, even without an actual non-confidence vote being held.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says his government could have done more to limit Canada's immigration programs.
Looking back, when the post-pandemic boom cooled and businesses no longer needed the additional labor help, as a federal team, we could have acted quicker and turned off the taps faster.
The Prime Minister says increased immigration was needed after the COVID-19 pandemic to boost Canada's labour market. However, he claims bad actors took advantage of programs, including employers trying to avoid hiring Canadians and schools recruiting international students. The federal government has already announced plans to reduce permanent resident streams by about 20% in 2027. A trial is set to get underway this week for 2 men accused of smuggling a family across the U.S.-Canada border in freezing temperatures.
The family of 4 died while attempting the crossing, and the upcoming court decision could impact Canada's immigration laws. CTV's Kamal Karamali reports.
It's been almost 3 years since a family from India was found frozen to death here, near the border between Manitoba and Minnesota. Now Harsh Kumar Patel and Steve Shand will stand trial this week on human smuggling charges. Prosecutors allege as part of their operation, Patel would drop migrants near the border in Manitoba. They would walk across and Shand would pick them up on the U.S. side. But in mid-January of 2022, blizzard conditions and wind chill below minus 35 Celsius left Jagdish Patel, his wife Veshalabin, and their 2 children dead. Autopsies confirmed they died from hypothermia a few meters from the border.
Our law enforcement has to slam down hard to try and prevent future occurrences.
The Patel family, one of many Indian migrants who make the trip to Canada only to cross the border to the U.S. With illegal immigration an ongoing issue for both countries, lawyers hope this trial will have a ripple effect in Canada by having Canadian Border Services focus less on deportation and focus more on punishing smugglers.
They go after the students and the workers and the people who get here, and they hit them for misrepresentation, and they deport them. But the people behind the whole schemes are the ones who seem to be getting away with it.
Raising concern human smugglers won't stop until a clear message is sent.
History shows that smugglers, no matter how hard you punish them, simply find other employees to do their evil task.
Kamal Koramali, CTV News, Toronto.
A recent survey finds 2/3 of Canadians are optimistic about where human rights in Canada are headed. The survey conducted by the Canadian Museum for Human Rights also found growing pessimism about the state of human rights abroad. Respondents say their concerns internationally are driven mostly by war, violence, sexism, and issues impacting women's rights. The museum CEO says she's encouraged that the poll suggests more people share a common sense of social responsibility and that Canadians are concerned about systemic issues like healthcare and affordable housing. Well, the incoming Trump administration south of the border is putting Canada's defense spending back in the spotlight.
Trump has previously threatened to pull protection from NATO allies who don't meet spending requirements. CTV's Colton Prale has those details.
Understaffed, under-equipped, and underprepared. The criticisms of Canada's military are long-standing, but there are new warnings about their consequences.
We are laggard. We are irrelevant. If we expect to get any attention in Washington at all on anything, we've got to do major work on our defense capabilities.
Canada is one of the only NATO members without a costed plan to hit NATO's 2% of GDP spending targets. What was a nuisance for previous American administrations could be much more consequential under a Trump White House that looks to tie defense budgets to tariffs and free trade agreements.
This will be America's new golden age.
His approach is entirely transactional, and he's perfectly happy to link what we need to what he demands.
This month, the former top soldier told a parliamentary committee Canada's military readiness was at its lowest point in 50 years, warning Canada is falling behind its NATO peers, spending just above 1.3% of GDP on defense this year, climbing to 1.76% in 2030.
Our friends and allies are tired of waiting for us. And we're now putting our nation at risk, not only in terms of defense, but also trade and credibility at a time when these predators are on the prowl.
According to the parliamentary budget officer, meeting the NATO target would mean doubling military spending over the next 8 years.
Colton Prale, CTV News, Ottawa.
In Ukraine, at least 10 people were killed in a missile attack on Odessa today. More than 40 others were injured in the Russian strike on the Black Sea port. Ukraine's president says a parking lot, an apartment building, and a university were damaged. Missiles also struck a residential area in northern Ukraine, killing 11 people. Yesterday, U.S. President Joe Biden gave Kyiv the go-ahead to hit targets inside Russia with American-supplied longer-range missiles. Today, the Kremlin said that decision adds fuel to the fire of this war and would escalate international tensions even higher.
The G20 summit is now underway in Rio de Janeiro, and it is a busy day for Canada's Prime Minister. Justin Trudeau is meeting with the presidents of the United States and Mexico, as well as his counterpart from Japan. He is also taking part in the summit's main events, many focusing on ending hunger and poverty. On the weekend, Trudeau voiced concern about the high levels of Chinese investment in Mexico. Last week, Ontario's premier also raised the issue, saying Mexico has become a backdoor for Chinese vehicles and other products into Canada.
The COP29 summit is entering its final week with an urgent plea from the United Nations climate chief for countries to get down to business.
I urge you, wrap up less contentious issues as early as possible this week, so there is enough time for the major political decisions.
The annual climate summit is focused on trying to reach an agreement on how much financing should be directed to help developing nations reach their climate targets. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change warns keeping global warming to 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels is beyond reach if countries don't increase their ambitions.
A gold watch given to the captain of a ship which rescued more than 700 passengers and crew from the Titanic has sold for nearly $2 million US. The 18-carat Tiffany pocket watch belonged to Captain Arthur Rostron. It was given to him by 3 of the women he rescued when the Titanic sank in 1912. Rostron changed the course of his steamship during a journey from New York to the Mediterranean after hearing the Titanic's distress call. The watch sold to a private collector for just under $2 million. That is the most expensive item related to the Titanic ever sold at auction. And let's go live now to Jessica Smith, who is standing by for a quick look at the forecast. Jess.
We are starting off the work and school week with high pressure, meaning a beautiful forecast to kick things off. Still feeling well above that seasonal mark as we step in towards the middle of the month. So if you're getting out this afternoon, maybe coming to get a smile cookie, the forecast very agreeable. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long range forecast as we settle into the week and we look ahead to some active weather on the way. All those details after the break.
Well, the weather is going to make you smile today, as are those smile cookies at Tim's. Our Jessica Smith is on location this afternoon. Hey, Jess.
Hi, it's the launch. We're down here again at Midland and Elsmere. I'm here with Katie Annabelle, and we're talking about the Smile Cookie campaign. People love it, but talk to me about what it means to the community, because I know that 100% of the proceeds go back, but it gets split in 2 really special ways.
Yeah, so first and foremost, we want to thank everybody who takes the time to get out and buy a cookie this week. It's a delicious kickoff to the holiday season, and yes, every cookie you buy, whether it be 1 or a dozen, with every bite, you are really making a significant impact in your community. So we have 50% going to local charities. We have the other 50% going to the Tim Hortons Foundation camps. So last year alone, the inaugural kickoff of this wonderful campaign, Tim Hortons did raise over $9.8 million, and $5 million of that came back to the foundation. So with that, we were able to actually serve 50% more youth in 2024 compared to 23. So you're making a big change. You're the change makers, and what better way to kick things off with a little sweet treat?
You had me at sweet treats. So year 2, what's new? I know obviously you want to change things every year, kind of add a little bit more. Is there anything special this year? It's just more goodness, more happiness, and really doing the most when it comes to the smile cookies to help make our community a better place.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're kind of continuing things with our white chocolate sprinkle cookie here with a great white fondant smile. And yeah, we really just invite everybody, all Tim Hortons guests, new guests, old guests returning, to visit November 18th through the 24th to grab a cookie, buy 1 or a dozen. It all makes a huge impact. So we really just encourage cookies.
I really do feel like the smile just makes it taste better. It hits different when there's a smile on it. Katie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have already put in an order for many cookies. Switching gears, some cookies to weather, because it's a great day to eat cookies, I think, anytime. We're holding on to high pressure, so this is a good day to get out. Go for a walk, come out to Tim Hortons, get yourself a cookie, a coffee. It really is the perfect combination. Temperature-wise, it is very mild as we get our day started, our week started here in the city and really right across the GTA. We're sitting at 13 for our high today, again, well above season with a nice westerly wind, and right across southern Ontario, we are just comfortably above that seasonal point where you maybe don't need the extra jacket. Into this evening, holding on at an above seasonal point as well. We should be around -1 this time of year. We'll sit at about 3 degrees with a few light clouds. Now, we are watching a pretty major system coming up from south of the border set to eventually bring a little rain. You can see it there. But for now, for your Monday, for the majority of your Tuesday, we're holding on to a relatively dry start to the week. It really is as we head in towards our Tuesday evening, our Wednesday, that we watch for the chance of rain. As we head in towards our Monday night, it really is not too bad. A few light clouds out there. They increase overnight, and then we watch kind of the beginning of that system making its way in. You can see it there into that north and western corner. As we head in towards our Tuesday afternoon, again, there's a chance of a few light showers, and then it really starts to kind of come in a few waves as we head throughout the afternoon, clearing into the early evening. We step in towards our Wednesday. We watch for the system to intensify a little bit, and then we're looking at a stretch of unsettled days. So it has been a sunny and very mild start to the month of November, but really into that second half, things get a little bit soggy, so plan on bringing your umbrella. We head into the next 7 days with a forecast that isn't too bad. Again, above seasonal today, above seasonal tomorrow. tomorrow. And then it's as that system moves in that we start to see things cool down. But really, Monday right through to Wednesday, we stay in the double digits. Every degree counts in the month of November. It really isn't until we get in towards Thursday, Friday, and Saturday that we see those temperatures dip a little closer to seasonal. It is going to be one of those days that you want to get out and enjoy it if you can, because the sunshine is doing the most. And I feel like I've already kind of eyeballed which cookie exactly that I want. It's that one right there. Thank you very much. I'm going to take in a second. I'll finish doing my job first, but I'll send things back inside. I'll bring back some cookies, guys, I promise.
Oh, good. I was going to ask. Jess always brings back food. Thank you. Let's turn to sports now. The Raptors are going to be looking to avoid an 8th straight loss when they take on the Indiana Pacers tonight.
Babaji there. Tatum deep three. Got it for the win.
Oh, yeah, the Raps are coming off an overtime loss to the Boston Celtics Saturday. Boston sank a deep three-point shot in the final second of OT to beat Toronto 126-123. Tip-off for tonight's game against Indiana is set for just after 7:30 p.m. at Scotiabank Arena.
The Maple Leafs will be without Ryan Reeves for the next 5 games. Reeves has been suspended for the next 5 contests following an illegal check to the head of Oilers defender Darnell Nurse. Reeves received a 5-minute major penalty and was ejected from the game following the hit. The Leafs will be back on the ice on Wednesday to face the Vegas Golden Knights.
Still to come, new research is outlining the benefits of a consistent bedtime, particularly for kids. We'll have those details when we return. For scientists, the planet Uranus has always been an enigma. Almost everything we know about the gas giant we learned from a 3-hour flyby of Voyager 2 all the way back in 1986. Well, now some researchers believe the readings we got all those years ago might have been misleading. Let's bring in CTV science and tech specialist. Who else? Dan Riskin. Dan, what was it about those initial readings that was just so mysterious?
Yeah, there was a lot about that planet that really caught their eye. One thing is that the magnetic field seemed more intense than it really should, and there wasn't as much plasma in it as there should have been based on all the other magnetic fields of all the other planets, including Earth. But a new paper has just come out suggesting that maybe it happened that the flyby occurred right when something weird was happening. If there was a big solar storm that had sent a ton of material towards that planet, and it smushed the magnetic field as it would according to computer models, and as we see here on Earth when there's a storm like that, it would have changed the shape in a way that made it look kind of weird in exactly the ways that it looked kind of weird. And so even though that kind of a setup only occurs about 4% of the time, maybe we just happened to see Uranus on a funny day. Maybe it was just a flyby at the wrong moment. And so the good news is NASA does have plans to send a spaceship back there, and this time not to just fly past, but to actually go into orbit around there, even to send a probe down. So hopefully we'll know more in the coming years. But for right now, it's a hypothesis that tries to explain why that enigmatic planet looked so weird the day we happened to get a good look.
Of all the days. Okay, Dan, let's shift gears to AI now. ChatGPT happens to be 2 years old this month. And when it first came out, the progress seemed so fast. But now some people have said progress has slowed. Do we know why that is?
Yeah, it's interesting. Some people are saying that it's slowed, and other people are saying, no, it hasn't slowed. But the people saying it hasn't slowed tend to be the companies that are trying to get people to invest because they say that their models are still growing very fast. So it's hard to really get a good sense of what the truth is. But the way that these models get bigger and better and faster is to give them more data. You give it 10 times as much data, it all of a sudden becomes smarter. You give it 100 times more data, it becomes even smarter than that. But we're reaching a point where they've seen almost all the data you can give it. They've read Wikipedia, they've read Reddit, they've looked at the internet, they've seen Encyclopedia Britannica, they've seen the complete works of Shakespeare. There aren't a lot of things left on the shelf to feed these things, certainly not 10 times more. And so we're coming up against a limit on how much you can feed these models, which may prevent them from continuing on this trajectory of improved performance that we've gotten used to over the last 2 years. So researchers aren't clear that we've reached that point, that it's stopped or anything like that, but it does start to look like things are slowing, and that may be a good explanation for why.
Well, there'll be more data about Uranus to feed it eventually. Finally, Dan, there's a new study that suggests for young kids, a consistent bedtime is more than just a way to get to sleep, that it actually has value in its own right for helping kids emotionally. Tell us what this research shows.
Yeah, you and I, Michelle, we often talk parenting, and I know a lot of parents watch this show, grandparents watch this show, and so, this one really hit home for me because I always think of bedtime as this necessary evil to get those kids into bed and get them sleeping for as many hours as possible so they won't wake up as monsters, right? And so for me, bedtime is like this urgent panic. And it turns out I could do better. It turns out that what they've found from this study is that bedtime is its own special thing that gives kids emotional resilience. The calm down that occurs at bedtime and the consistency of bedtime helps kids handle themselves better throughout the day. And so to do this experiment, they took kids and they put them in mildly stressful situations where they couldn't get access to a toy that they wanted, for 4 minutes or something like that. These are 6-year-old kids. And what they found is those kids that have a consistent bedtime every night within 20 minutes throughout the week, those kids did much better at handling their emotions under stress compared to kids whose bedtimes vary a lot. If a kid doesn't know what time they're actually going to be going to bed, apparently that causes a certain level of stress that then carries through to the following days. And so it really points out that for me as a parent, what I could do differently is to really just embrace bedtime as its own thing that is worth focusing on, that is separate from how many hours of sleep they get. Because the timing of bedtime and the consistency of that bedtime timing was more important than how many hours of sleep those kids were getting.
Well, now we're armed with this knowledge when we do bedtime tonight. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Take care.
Well, when it comes to bike lanes, it seems many Canadians are unwilling to share the road.
That's despite data that indicates the lanes can help reduce congestion rather than create more of it. CTV's Kathy Lee explains.
When a bike lane opens, the process isn't always a smooth ride.
What's not surprising is sort of the feeling or the fight about roadway space.
Many were worried about roadway space in Calgary after the city made a controversial bike network permanent in 2016. The sentiment echoed in Vancouver in 2009.
Ridiculous!
When the first permanent cycle lane opened on the Bathurst Street Bridge.
What this is going to do is going to cause a lot of traffic jams.
Now, more than 1 million cyclists roll through without a gridlock. But despite the success, the country's largest city could see itself backpedal on existing bike lanes as the Ford government puts the wheels in motion to remove them from 3 main Toronto roads.
This is not okay. This is overstepping local democracy.
The city will be slower and have worse traffic overall.
But for the average person, their view of the impact of bike lanes differ. A Nanos research study reveals the majority of Canadians believe that bike lanes on the road worsen traffic and support spending tax dollars on building bicycle infrastructure, not on roadways.
It speaks to the challenge that people see with bike lanes. Yeah, there's a problem, but there's also a potential solution, at least that a majority of Canadians support.
People don't really know how bike lanes work because we have very few bike lanes in the country.
Often in the research what we find is that bike lanes help improve traffic flow.
Experts say the assumption is that opening up more vehicle lanes would reduce congestion, but a phenomenon called induced traffic results in the opposite effect. That's because when another lane is added, people perceive more opportunities to travel and may respond by driving more, which can lead to more traffic congestion. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Calgary.
While expected blockbusters Wicked and Gladiator 2 will hit theaters in a few days, moviegoers were in a festive mood this weekend.
There's worse ways to go out than trying to save Santa Claus.
Christmas action adventure film Red One, starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, easily claimed the top spot with $34.1 million US in ticket sales across North America. It was able to kick Venom: The Last Dance out of #1. That film brought in $7.4 million in its 4th week. And the best Christmas pageant ever stayed on the podium with $5.4 million.
Beyonce is set to perform at an NFL game on Christmas Day in her hometown of Houston. Netflix announcing the singer will take the stage for a halftime show on December 25th during a game between the Houston Texans and Baltimore Ravens. The streaming service did not provide any details about the performance other than to say it would likely feature guest appearances from Beyonce's Cowboy Carter album. The other Christmas Day game features the Kansas City Chiefs and Pittsburgh Steelers, prompting speculation that Taylor Swift, who will be finished with her Eras tour by that time, could perhaps perform.
Interesting. Still to come, it is like a GPS for lost luggage. A new initiative is being rolled out to help deal with one of the most frustrating parts of air travel. The details still ahead.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Air Canada will be using a new tool to help travelers retrieve lost luggage.
The airline is set to partner with passengers to use air tags to help track down missing bags. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth explains.
It's a nightmare for travelers, losing your luggage at the airport.
They told me that it's in Toronto, it's coming later today.
Until then, this U.S. visitor will hang around and wait for an update.
As long as it all comes, we'll be good.
The retrieval process for lost bags could soon be much smoother. Apple has announced a new feature that will help users locate their bags with AirTags. Travelers attach the tech to their luggage and share the location of an AirTag with Air Canada.
If they do lose your luggage and they do find it somewhere where it wasn't supposed to be, do they have the processes in place to get it to you as quickly as possible?
In an email to CTV News, an Air Canada spokesperson said it will allow customers to securely share the location of their baggage containing AirTags directly with our baggage service team. This Air Canada flyer calls it a welcome and user-friendly option.
It's another tool so people can help them out, for that matter. Say, yeah, it's in the terminal. Here it is, according to my iPad.
This new AirTag feature will be available in most regions worldwide, allowing people to track their bags regardless of where they travel.
I think consumers should see it as a positive step, even though they have to put in their own costs to purchase those Apple trackers. But again, it's just one extra feature that can make you feel a lot better if you're traveling, especially if you're traveling with valuables in your checked luggage.
So far, Air Canada is the only Canadian airline that will use the AirTag luggage tracking system, which could be in place by the end of the year. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
Housing starts for all areas of Canada increased by 8% in October. The Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation's latest report showed the seasonally adjusted rate of housing starts was just under 241,000 units in October. That was an 8% bump from the more than 223,000 starts in September. However, the 6-month moving average of housing starts was flat at 243,522 units in October.
Coming up on CTV News at noon, creating connections with strangers. Toronto radio is using prank calls to bring people closer together.
A Toronto radio host is making prank calls with a focus on connection.
Her chats with strangers on the East Coast have become a hit with listeners. CTV's Heather Wright explains.
Hello?
Hey, you, how are ya?
Not too bad, and you?
They are perhaps the nicest prank calls. And what's for dinner tonight?
Oh, I don't know. Codfish.
Jax Irwin, a radio and podcast host, dials random Nova Scotia numbers to see how long the person on the other end of the line will chat.
Well, I wanted to check in. I heard you guys are getting buckets of rain.
I couldn't believe it.
The idea started during a trip back home to Dartmouth, Nova Scotia this summer. Irwin now lives in Toronto, but she was feeling nostalgic for the East Coast.
So I was like, why not call the White Pages? It kind of just spiraled.
Millions of people have now watched videos of the calls.
Did you get fries?
Irwin's East Coast accent quickly charming the stranger who happened to pick up.
I think that through the pandemic, especially, there was such a loss of connection in so many ways. And sometimes it's nice just to chat about how the weather is, what's for dinner, and how you're doing.
Irwin says if she senses any hesitation or confusion in someone's voice, she will say wrong number and hang up.
Usually they just keep talking because they don't want to admit they don't know who they're talking to.
So the question we had, are people in Ontario as nice and friendly as those down east?
Okay, so we're going to test out a theory.
After a few tries, we reached Rodney.
How you doing?
Not too bad.
What's going on today?
Not very much.
Good, good.
Irwin says she enjoys these calls and connection it gives her to friendly strangers.
In a world that sometimes feels a bit dark and isolating, it's nice just to talk to people.
So if a block number calls you, you might want to answer.
Is it starting to pour there, or how's the weather?
No, weather's okay here right now. It's clouded over, but
you never know who might be on the other end of the line. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
Well, we know someone here who can talk to anyone at any time. That's our Jessica Smith. She is a ray of sunshine, and it's a beautiful, beautiful day today, Jess.
It really is. I've been spending a good part of my morning here at the Tim Hortons at Midland and Ellesmere for the launch of the Smile Cookie campaign. So I've got an order set to bring back to you guys, and it's a great day to eat cookies outside because the sun is shining, high pressure holding nicely as we step in towards the beginning of the work and school week. And we are starting off with at least a little bit of sunshine before an active weather system makes its way in. Right now sitting at 13 here in the city, the same through Windsor, Kingston at 9. And overall it is quite mild, and we're sitting above seasonal. No surprise, it's been that trend really through the start of the fall season. Into the day tomorrow, 10 degrees. We're watching for the chance of maybe a midday shower, but overall it's not too bad. The bulk of that system makes its way in overnight Tuesday into Wednesday, and then we're looking at showers off and on from Wednesday right through to Sunday. So keep the umbrella handy. The good news is we're staying fairly seasonal even as this rain makes its way in, but overall it is going to be a soggy mark to the middle of the week, and that carries us again right through to Sunday. I think regardless of the weather, the cookies just taste great no matter what the weather is doing outside. So it's a good day and a good week to get your cookie on for a good cause. I'll send things back inside to you guys.
All right, we'll savor the sunshine and the cookies, Jess. Thank you. And that is CTV's News at Noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and on our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jess Smith and the whole team here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Natalie Johnson. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6 o'clock.
See you then.